Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on Millennials at Work. Before we start the presentation, which will take about 30 minutes, and we'll give you a summary of the new paper we have just finished. And that's me together with our CEO, Christophe de Wolf, and also our Employee Happiness Manager, Kim Verheijden. We'll give you a summary of this paper in 30 minutes, in the next 30 minutes. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to send them to me. This is my email address. It's yuri@insights.eu, and I will be happy to answer all your questions personally, and also you will get the best questions, of course, in the Smarties LinkedIn group, of which we will send a link to you after this webinar. So let's start with trying out our fantastic sound system.
You see me have you work. You see me do me da. You saw me better work. When you walk a la. I'm in the cafe, my da.
With an increasing number of retiring baby boomers, we'll see in the next 4 years that millennials will make up half of the global workforce. But millennials were raised in different times and in a different way than all the generations, like myself. I'm a Gen Xer myself. So that this often leads to misconceptions and even frictions at the workspace. Often older generations at the workspace accuse millennials of being the entitled generation. They say they're less accountable, even lazy. And more than 6 out of 10 HR professionals would call them, the millennials, hard to manage or even unprepared for the workplace. When we have a look at millennials themselves, they also seem to be quite unhappy at work, with only 29% of them feeling engaged with their work. 29%, it means that 70% of them is having this whatever forever feeling.
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
As a result of feeling disengaged, 6 out of 10 millennials will leave their company within the first 3 years, and this is with an estimated cost of $20,000 for each person, each millennials that has to be replaced. So, if we want to build a workplace that's future-proof, that's millennial-proof, especially with the retiring baby boomer generation that needs to be replaced by millennials, it's perhaps a good idea to understand the different working perspectives of millennials and to learn how we can create an HR approach or a millennial-proof workplace that is able to attract and retain millennial talents in a volatile world today. So let's first have a look at how millennials themselves have a different perspective when it comes to work, and also why they have a different perspective when it comes to work. One of the first things we notice is that millennials have been brought up with less hierarchical parenting and less hierarchical educational systems. They have actually been taught to form their own and express their own opinions and perspective. And while doing so, they received an ample supply of attention and appraisal. And this has led to an assertive, self-confident generation, but also a generation that clearly has a can-do mentality. So clearly, they desire an ownership of their work. They also embrace an entrepreneurial mindset, as 70% of millennials says they would like to be their own boss. And so they dislike work without understanding what's the end purpose of whatever they need to do at work. And micromanagement is seen as one of the main reasons why millennials would leave work. The next example is how Amazon is taking this into account.
Here's a gig that's got the whole package. Amazon Flex. Deliver with Amazon. Make $18 to $25 an hour and be your own boss. All you need is the Amazon Flex app. Then start delivering on your own schedule. You deliver with us, we deliver for you, putting the power of Amazon behind you so you can do what you really want to do. Like Ben. He's writing his second children's book. Go Ben! What do you flex for?
So the flexible working schemes of Amazon, they put emphasis on to be your own boss, to be in charge of your own schedule or agenda, and it's clear that they are also focusing on the other things you can do in life, not just your work, but your other passion points, whether it's your kids or a hobby or even another company you would like to start. So having the sense of autonomy is important, but also we know that millennials are quite addicted to feedback, right? Think of the obsessively checking of Facebook likes or other social media. But this also translates into the working space. It means they need more feedback. And 42 of millennials say they would like feedback at least on a weekly basis. 42%, that's double the amount if you compare it to older generations. So it means our feedback mechanisms at work should change. The way we evaluate our millennial employees should change. And we see many companies leaving the annual performance review and replacing it with more flexible and especially more weekly or even more daily ways of evaluating their millennial employees. Not just evaluating, of course, but also helping them to achieve goals. This is an example of General Electrics. General Electrics has the PDFGE, Personal Development at General Electrics app, which is kind of a digital continuous conversation between their young employees and their coaches. And it allows millennial employees to set short-term goals, and the coaches, the managers, are able to follow up on each short-term goal. Millennial employees can also ask immediately for feedback through using this digital application. It's an app like they're used to use, and it's not just General Electric that has switched this annual review to a more permanent way of giving feedback, but other large companies like PwC is also doing this. So more continuous feedback, and of course also a more customized benefit scheme. Millennials grew up in an internet-enabled world. They are used to designing their own sneakers, for instance, or designing their own meals and ordering them. So it means they also want to design their own package of benefits. And many flex work companies like this one that is in London enabling flexible work, freelance working network for creatives in different areas. And they are putting the emphasis on the freedom you have when you work in this flexible gig-style economy. Variety-seeking millennials, they are looking for ways to use their unique talents and skills in a more project-style assignment way. One of the advantages, this is the wrong way, of this flexible work is that it allows them to have more variation. This way they have no paperwork, they have regular payments every 14 days. It's a very transparent system because it's clear that 9% of the fee they get is for the employer. And as a community member, as a millennial, they also get advantages. If they work with this particular company in London, they get discounts on buying Apple products, they get discounts on buying ASOS clothes, they get discounts at Ticketmaster, on Trainline, etc., etc. It's really a community of flexible working millennials. And it could be a good model for the employers of the future, as today actually the service agreements with our employees are still quite strict and not flexible enough. I think in the future we will need to attract top talents, young talents with more flexible service agreements. Now, although we've been talking about millennials that seem to be more individually empowered, it doesn't necessarily mean they're all individualists or more individualistic than other generations. We actually know from the Who's Up Next studies we've done at Insights Consulting that Generation Y or millennials are less individualistic than Generation X or even their Gen Z offspring. Why? Because it's the first generation that grew up with democratic households, democratic decisions at home. Their baby boomer parents involved them in the household. They also had cooperative learning styles at school, more working in groups. So they are very team oriented. They like bonding, they like socializing in groups. And they're the first generation that actually believes that a team can accomplish more and have better results than solo riders. This opposed to Gen X, who used to be more the solo yuppie riders in their careers.
We're looking for artists and designers to help craft, this so it looks much less like a functional piece of engineering that we had before, and much more of an expression. We're looking for people to help with the art side, as well as the engineering and electronics, and just how to manage a team. We need all the help we can get.
Collective Project is a content hub of Microsoft that was launched to highlight the work of inspiring students and show how working together collaboratively can improve the world in the end. It was a challenge actually for a big brand like Microsoft to find the real connection with millennials, but I think this is a great way of combining, on one hand, working together, and on the other hand, improving a world. And that brings me to the next topic, the next subject that's quite important for millennials at work, and it's a purpose-driven organization. With the growing educational levels and all the basic Maslow needs fulfilled, we saw a decline of the importance of classical status symbols like company cars, for instance, or nice job titles, and an increased importance of self-actualization, which means they want to experience, they want to have a more intrinsic values at work. So income and work and status, it's still important, but it's a means to an end. To them, a personal life full of exploration, of experience and meaning, purpose is much more important. For 60% of millennials, the sense of purpose was the reason they were choosing a certain employer. And more than half of the millennials would take a 15% pay cut to work for a company that is matching their own ideals. And that brings me, of course, also to the work-life balance. I know it's kind of a cliche topic when we talk about millennials, but it is a cliche for a reason. It's important to them because work is not the only important aspect in their lives. It's just one of the ways they organize things in life, or they go through their lives. What we saw in our studies when we were asking for the key job characteristics was that the positive work-life balance was the number one in the top 10 according to European millennials, and also for the US millennials it was quite comparable. Next to having a good relationship with colleagues, having a fun working environment, also good relationship with my manager, my coach, some job security as well. This is the top 10. What you don't see the top 10 is an above average salary. It's just below the top 10. 57% of millennials say that an above average salary or wage is still important, and also attractive extra legal benefits. 55% of millennials agree that this is one of the key job characteristics. So yes, it's important, but it's a means to an end. It's not in the top 10. And it's also because we asked an above average salary. It still means that a millennial will want an average salary when you compare it to other companies in your industry, so not below average, but it also means that it's not a number one motivational driver. So this is the first part of the webinar. We were talking about how millennials look different at the job context. They are individually empowered because that's the way they've been raised, not just by baby boomer parents, but also by the education system. On the other hand, although they are more individually empowered, they are also collaborative oriented. They believe in the power of groups even more than Gen X, and they are purpose driven. It's all about finding a meaningful life. Let's go to the second part, and it's related to the context, to the job context that millennials are entering the workspace. And of course, it's a VUCA world, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous world. And one of the first things they are confronted with is a quite uncertain work context. Many of the millennials actually came of age in a very, very difficult time in our economy. The oldest of the millennials were only 27, that's the oldest ones, when the recession began in Europe in December 2007. That means that certain education decisions, career path decisions were taken in a time of great economic uncertainty. And so it's also true that the long-held belief that every generation should do better than the previous generation, it is more and more under threat, considering also debts and student debts are higher than credit card debts today. So it's a different environment for them. We also saw a dramatic shift in employment contracts, with more freelance work to be expected in the next few years. And it's predicted that at least 40%, 40, will be freelance work in the next years. So more uncertain conditions, but also more complex work context. Due to automation, robots, and offshoring, we saw a massive decline in the more simple process work in Europe and in the Western world. And as a consequence, work in Europe is getting more and more complex. McKinsey made this estimation that the number of skills you need at the workplace went from 178 to 924 in only 3 years' time. So it's definitely more complex to work today. You need more skills. And for that reason, millennials, 93% of them say they want lifelong learning. So it's also quite an important aspect to stress when you want to attract and retain millennials. It's the learning aspect. How will they move through their job to go higher up in the organization? Then it's also a changing digitally fueled context. And of course, millennials are the digital natives. They are also stimulation junkies, so they like change. And again, that's opposed to older generations. They value innovation much more and change much more than previous older generations. 78% of millennials say they were strongly influenced by how innovative a certain company is to decide whether they want to work for that employer. And it's not a coincidence that brands like Google, Apple, and Facebook are seen as the ideal place to work for millennials, because these are the companies that are really stressing their innovation plans today. When I was working on this paper, together with Christophe and Kim, I had a number of interviews with people, and this is one of the guys I had the chance to interview. He's working from Zurich, in Switzerland. Olli Brunschweiler is responsible for the commercial aspects and also a bit of design aspect of a nice brand called Freitag. Freitag is a Swiss brand of bags, messenger bags, other types, handbags, all accessories as well. They're not made of leather, but they're made of 100% recycled truck tarps, together with some recycled car belts and the inner tubes of bicycles, and they create these wonderful bags. Now, one of my first questions to Olli was, describe me your job here at Freitag, and his answer was, well, that's the most difficult question you can ask, because today at Freitag we are working in this new setting, and it's called holacracy. Holacracy means that they have left the traditional top-down organizational structure, and they're using the structure that is more distributing power to achieve control in the end. It means that every individual has its own role within a circle. For instance, Olli was working in the commercial circle, and he has his own responsibilities. So he can take decisions himself without too many meetings in a row to finally get a decision. So it's a more agile way, let's call it, to organize work, and it's often used by IT companies, Silicon Valley-based companies. And I think we'll see that many more companies, when they are confronted with how to organize work with millennials, will try to find more flexible ways of working, and of course ways of working that allow more freedom and more entrepreneurship for the millennial at work. Because in this system, employees have to rely on themselves, on their own skills, rather than just rely on reporting to a manager that will take the difficult decisions. So this was the second part of the webinar, where we were talking about the changing working context. It's a VUCA world, more uncertain, more complex, and it's fast and digitally fueled. The last part of the webinar is all about how do you create an HR approach that is more future-proof? How do you create a workplace that is millennial-proof? And it's clear that purpose is quite important. So a mission-driven culture is the base of creating a millennial-proof HR approach. I think Unilever is one of the strong examples of how you can focus on your core values, sustainability in this case, and both boost the company reputation but also business performance. Paul Polman, as a CEO, is always strongly emphasizing the way that all Unilever brands should have a social purpose, and Dove, I think, is the best known example, and was one of the first brands 13 years ago to use this social purpose as a campaign, the campaign for real beauty. And Dove was also the first $5 billion brand for Unilever, so quite successful. Nearly all the brands of Unilever have double-digit growths. So yes, it is performing on a business level, and it's also performing on an HR level, because Unilever is the third most searched company on LinkedIn after Google and Apple. Another nice example is what the outdoor specialist retailer, it's a cooperative retailer, REI, is doing in the US at Black Friday, the typical day you go shopping in the US because you have major discounts. They actually decided to close all the stores, 146 stores, and also the digital store. So you couldn't even buy stuff online with this outdoor retailer. They gave all their employees, more than 12,000 people, a paid day off during Black Friday, because the purpose of the brand is actually to get people outside and to make sure that they enjoy the outdoors. And I think it's a nice campaign that really worked.
Black Friday is quickly approaching, and people are already
The
carrying
Thanksgiving turkey hasn't even been cooked.
Black Friday madness is already started.
Millions of people are jamming into areas, trying to be the first in line.
Black Friday now starts earlier than ever. People are ready to take
It's the second year in a row that REI did this campaign, the Opt Outside campaign. And this year, well, actually at the end of last year, because then it was Black Friday in November, 1.4 million people spent their day outside, and more than 170 organizations were actually participating. REI also did some deals with national parks in the US. So if you wanted to enjoy the outdoors, you could get a free entrance at most major national parks in the US. Clearly, the campaign is supporting the main DNA of the brand, the purpose of the brand, and also living up to the promise by giving a paid holiday for their staff and closing all the stores, including the digital ones. The Opt Outside hashtag was a trending topic on Twitter and Instagram, not just on Black Friday, but for a couple of days. So it also works on business performance. Another great example of this purpose is Netflix. If you go to SlideShare, you will find the Netflix culture deck, Freedom and Responsibility it's called. It's a 124 slide presentation about the goals, the values and the employee engagement programs of this Silicon Valley company. And as you can see, it has been viewed more than 15 million times. So Reed Hastings, the co-founder and the CEO of Netflix, is explaining what is the purpose of Netflix, what are our main values and our goals. And one of them you will find in the deck is that they see Netflix as a team, not as a family. And it actually means they're not treating their employees like kids. And it means that people can take as many holidays as they like. There's not really a vacation policy. And also when it comes to expenses, there is no need to get an approval for every expense as long as employees are doing expenses in the general best interest of Netflix, it's okay. There's no manager approving the expansions. When Reed Hastings was confronted with this rather progressive HR policy, you could say, he said, yeah, we have no vacation policy, but we don't have a clothing policy, and still we don't see anybody popping up at Netflix wearing no clothes at all. So it doesn't mean because there's no policy that your employees are not capable of making the right decisions. We are not a family, we're a team, and they are not kids. So that's the first thing. And the second point in creating an HR approach for millennials is, of course, teams, collaborative oriented. So team-oriented structure is important. And again, it comes back to we're a team, not a family. A team, when it comes to Netflix, also means we're not a kids recreational team, but we're a professional sports team, you could say. And it means that there are some things you should do when you work at Netflix. And one of the ways they evaluate their employees is the keeper test. In the keeper test, they're asking colleagues, suppose this specific colleague or employee would announce that they are leaving Netflix to work with a peer company, how hard would you fight to keep this specific employee? Which gives a ranking, of course, in the value of employees, but not just for managers, but also for the ones who are working with them on a day-to-day basis. Another example of a team-oriented structure is what AXA has been doing for a couple of years. AXA is this digital reverse mentoring in which they're bringing together different people from cross-generational, from different generations to work together. And in this case, it's the younger millennial digital natives who are teaching the older bankers how they can use social media and other digital media, because also AXA Bank and the financial industry is in a digital transformation. So they've been doing this for a couple of years, and it was quite successful at AXA as well. Another example from the fast-moving consumer goods is Mondelez. Mondelez already did the mobile future programs, and then they did the shopper future program. It's a short-term program of 3 months in which they ask marketers, team members, brand managers of different brands and different regions in the US and Canada to work together with entrepreneurs, startups, you could say, technological startups, and the client, which in terms of Mondelez is actually retailer clients, to come up with innovations that will improve the customer journey at the specific shops. So 90 days, like a sprint, very agile, to come up with new ideas, cross-generational team, cross-branding team, together with startups and with clients to come up with ideas. So clearly, collaboratively oriented, team-oriented structure at Mondelez. Apart from team structures, there are still individuals as well, millennials. So it's all about empowering individuals. And I guess one of the great examples is how LinkedIn has been stressing the well-being of individual employees since the day they were just born. LinkedIn has the IN days. It's short for investment days, and it means it's 1 day a month that every employee can invest in whatever they would like to do on that day, but that's also bringing something back for the company. And LinkedIn is still doing it today, although they have 8,000 offices in 30 cities. And they are stressing the well-being of every employee related to monthly teams. So they have 12 monthly teams, such as giving back to society, relationships, learning, but also wellness, even play. And one day a month, an employee gets some time related to these monthly teams to do something on their own. So stressing the individual and empowering individuals. Another great example is what this US company Starbucks did. Starbucks, typically globally present, wanted to stress the importance of individual baristas working at Starbucks. So they did this contest together with 7,500 branches of Starbucks, where they were looking for new recipes. They asked their staff members, the ones creating the coffee for you, come up with a new recipe that we haven't used before. And if it's selected, we will also sell it in your local store. And the ones who were creating the brew they were making were also on the billboard that was used to promote this specific drink. So a nice way of stressing the empowerment of individuals on one hand, but also on the other hand, it allowed Starbucks to compete with more local coffee bars from a branding and marketing perspective. So empowering individuals, and then the last part is all about everyday well-being of employees. Even in the finance industry, we saw that banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan started with the pencils down programs and protected weekends, in which they were forcing their millennial employees to take the weekend off. So after 9 p.m. on Friday evening, they were prohibited to work until 9 a.m. on Monday morning, because they saw a lot of burnouts, a lot of people being overstressed and not performing as they should if they were working all the time. Another example is this health assurance company, Aetna, and to me it's the only company that is paying employees to sleep, and it's quite a specific model. If you work with Aetna and you have a good night of sleep, more than 7 hours, you earn $1.25 for each night. You have to self-register your night of sleep, or you can use your Fitbit or wearable device, and you can earn up to, it's capped, you can earn up to $300 a year by sleeping well when you work for this company. Why? It's a health assurance company, and they want, that's the purpose again, to stress that apart from healthy eating and enjoying some fitness and some exercises, sleeping well is one of the key factors of having a good health, because if you have a lack of sleep, it's very harmful for your health, and this is a way to stress it and also to use it for their employees. There's Netflix again as an example. Netflix, apart from unlimited holidays, they also have the unlimited maternity leave. So in the first year after you give birth to a child, you can take as many days off as you like, and Netflix is paying their staff normally because they want to eliminate the hassle to switch to the disability leave, because it's more of a hassle than it's actually helping them and their administration, and also helping their employees. Now, this is not only maternity leave. What Netflix did as another progressive move was they also translated it to a paternity leave. For the dads, they have the same policy. So dads can also take as many days off in the first year after their wives gave birth to children. This brewery, Brewdog, which also has dog, of course, in its brand name, is one of the first companies that has a puppy paternity leave for dog owners, new dog owners who have just adopted a dog. The company also has 50 office dogs, so they're stressing the importance of dogs and pets at work. So from a paternity leave, they went to a pupternity leave, you could call it, or a paternity leave, if you want, as a new way of stressing the well-being of their employees. So to round up my presentation, the last part was all about creating a millennial-proof workplace, where we were talking about a mission or purpose-driven culture, a team-oriented structure, on the same hand, still empowering individuals and taking care of the everyday well-being. So that's it. I hope you thought it was very interesting. As HR managers say, perhaps millennials are not ready for the workplace today, but knowing that they're very agile, open to change and fast, they're definitely ready for the workplace of tomorrow. So let's start and create a workplace for tomorrow together, a future-proof workplace. If you want to have the full version of this story, there is this full paper you can download at insights-consulting.com/millennials at work. And Insights Consulting, by the way, is the company I'm working for. It has this Insight Activation Studio, which is a collaborative digital tool to create new innovations, new ideas, together with the millennials working in your company. So we're always happy to help you out with the right collaborative tools to endorse your HR and your other marketing approaches with millennials. Thanks a lot again for your attention. And if you want my details, you can find them on this slide. And that's also the email address you can send all your questions to. I will take care of your questions personally, and will also post some answers to the LinkedIn group related to our Smarties events. Thanks a lot for your time, and I hope it was quite inspiring to you. See you in the next time. Bye-bye.